And welcome to another Round the Rotary podcast. Me, your host, JP Warren, and with us today. Before we even do that, we gotta do the standard intro. Round the Rotary podcast is brought to you by Capital Petroleum Consultants. CPC specializes in project engineering, well site supervision, in all disciplines of oil and gas industry. Contact us through www.capitalpetroleumconsultants.com to see what CPC can do for you today. And that was it. That was the intro. And honestly, guys, I want to, guys and girls out there, I want to thank everyone out there for tuning in. We know you have your choice of oil and gas related podcast, and thank you for choosing the number one oil and gas related podcast per my wife. And with us today in the studio, we got Stephen Forrester, the content development manager at Gyrodata and contributing writer at Oil and Gas Global Network, OGGN. Is that right?
That's right.
Did I get that right?
Yes, sir.
So Stephen, Stephen?
Stephen's good.
I dig it, man. I dig it. So Stephen, first off, thank you for coming in today. So for those that don't know Stephen out there, I've noticed kind of a lot of his content and his discussions on LinkedIn. He's very engaging. He's very rational and logical when he does engage in conversations regarding the oil and gas industry and all aspects of the oil and gas industry. And recently, I've noticed that he was there's been several posts about the end of oil, peak oil, blah blah blah. Fossil fuels are over. Renewable energy is the way of the future, which we're not disagreeing with. But at the same time, as I saw how he engaged with them with various people on the internet, and I think of this type of message and his platform and his tone and his ability to engage with people, I thought was one of the things that we on Round the Rotary have been discussing is being an industry advocate. And so that's why you're here today, and also just to meet you. And we were just talking before we were supposed to record this about an hour ago. We got lost in conversations about cheesy 80s horror flicks, rock and roll, heavy metal, concerts, and all that stuff. So, Stephen, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, why don't we do what we normally do? Why don't you just kick off and talk to us about kind of where you're from, what brought you in here, everything like that. Start us off.
The whole shebang.
The whole shebang, right, buddy.
I'm a Bel Air, Texas boy, born and raised. Been here my whole life. I'm a true homebody. I'm never going anywhere. Never go anywhere else. Grew up pretty normal life. I'm an only child.
All right.
Actually lived in the house that my dad bought from my grandma.
Really?
Back in the day, pre Harvey loss, but yeah, it was a 70-year-old house that my dad bought for about 20-30 grand back in the day. Good times. But
good old days.
Yeah, and typical, growing up and in school and all that, I always had a passion for for reading and writing and literature and all that. So that kind of led me into studying English and English lit, also education and my undergrad, and then I did my master's, just kept on going.
So originally you got your undergrad in English.
English,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you, what did you want to do? You wanted to be a teacher?
I was going to be a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought I had it all figured out.
Why did you want to be a teacher?
I thought I could change the world.
Okay.
I love the idea of going in there and, it's funny, we talked about this earlier, but, about making that impact on a kid's life, even if it's just one, right?
Right.
That's the victory you're looking for.
Did you have a lot of good teachers or mentors back in the day? Is that why you kind of wanted to pursue that?
Maybe high school. I had some memorable teachers, but really my most, important mentors in my development were in college.
Okay.
I had two professors specifically that really kind of helped get me where I am. And, one, he was a British Romanticism professor.
Okay.
Yale educated, spoke 4 languages. The guy's CV was a mile long, just an incredible guy. And British Romanticism was my concentration. So to get really in the weeds with that, that's what I studied.
Let's get in the weeds. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
And the other one was a guy named Irving Roth. His name was James Pipkin.
Okay.
And then the other guy was Irving Rothman. He was my dad's professor at U of H, to tell you how long he had been there. And the dude was just, so much knowledge and everything. You couldn't even imagine what was in this guy's head.
All right.
And it was funny because when I was in I guess it might have been my master's, but I was taking a course with him, and he had a problem, a health problem, and he ended up getting a pacemaker. And he could not drive to the campus anymore.
Okay.
And he lived very close to where I lived. So he asked if I would drive him to campus 3 times a week, because the master's courses were 3-hour blocks. So it wasn't your little typical, hour and a half type thing. So I said yes, and I started taking him to class every time. And this guy was just amazing. I mean, everywhere you'd go, we'd drive up 288 and down McGregor and stuff, and everything was a story. Everything was a memory. And he just incredible guy.
Great storyteller.
Actually, I only found out recently that he passed, and he was in his 90s, so he did well. He lived a long life. He was a technical writer actually on the side. So PhD professor, published God knows how many things, and he did technical writing for Exxon and NASA and all sorts of stuff. But yeah, so he was one guy, and then Pipkin was the other, and they were kind of the ones that not only got me interested in pursuing writing and literacy and all that, but also in wanting to do more with it than teach, I guess you could say. So that was really,
the world.
Yeah, that was in my master's where I had thought I'd teach. I went and did a student teaching job at my alma mater, which is Bel Air High. My mentor there had been my English teacher in 10th grade, so really keeping it in the family. But it was great. I mean, I had pre-AP kids, so these are kind of the brightest, the best and the boldest and all that. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I got out of that. And I got the highest recommendation from my...
Well, why'd you get out of that?
Well, I mean, I finished it, and, everything was good. I got a good recommendation from my sponsor at the university. My mentor gave me good marks, all that. And then with HISD, which is my district, you had to go and kind of put your name in a pool.
Okay.
You could specify a few schools you really wanted, and then you had to put your name in the general pool otherwise. And honestly, the chance of a new teacher getting one of the preferred ones was low. But I kind of hoped, maybe I'll make it back to Bel Air. There's a connection there. Or Lamar, DeBakey, one of the high-ranking, at that point, those schools. And I knew the principal at Bel Air very well, so it was kind of like he'd been a friend since I was at Bel Air. I still knew him. And then, of course, he left right when I needed to get a job. So my first placement was out in the boonies. It was just a failing, school with a really high rate of student, loss and failure, doing terrible. That was kind of when it came to me.
How was that going from an AP, I guess, type of a course or students or whatever you want to call it to a kind of one of what did you say? One of the there was a high failure rate, and how would that change for you?
Yeah, because this is how schools are basically graded and how they get funding and things like that. So when you have a high fail rate and 70% of your kids are not passing their grades and they're being held back and all that. Not only does it impact how much money the school's getting, but it impacts really what you can kind of do as a teacher when you have, indifferent students, oftentimes, impoverished, maybe single parent or foster parent type thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mitigating kind of circumstances for their success.
Well, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry about that, but isn't that kind of counterintuitive? I mean, wouldn't you assume that the schools of the lower graduate rates or higher failure rates get more funding or get, more whatever it is, or resources to lift those.
You'd think.
Well, you would think. It's not that way.
No. I mean, the way funding is doled out is kind of wonky, and there's a lot of things like teacher bonuses that are tied to student performance. If you get certain marks with how many kids pass, like the standardized tests, for example,
right,
and can progress to the next grade, or how many kids take AP IB tests and get high scores on that when they transition from high school to college.
So you're just teaching the kids how to take a test.
So a lot of times, yeah.
Okay.
And that was a problem because I had this grand idea about I was going to come in and teach all this new stuff. And I don't know why I thought that. It was pretty naive, but I just thought somehow I'm going to do it differently and better. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm going to do it. And I went in and they said, no, here's the curriculum, here's your lessons, here's all the books you're going to read. You're going to prepare for the whatever it was then. I think it was the tax back then, or TEKS or whatever, and the STAR and all this stuff. Ultimately that's what they have to pass. They have to pass the classes too, but they have to pass that test to move on. And standardized testing like that is just worthless, right?
I cannot stand standardized tests. And standardized tests, and the only thing that measures is how well you take a test.
Yeah, you can memorize information.
I did horrible on SATs. I took my GMAT 3 times before and I didn't get to the required, I guess, score. And finally got to the point where I walked into the professor's office. And I was like, hey, look, I'm doing what in my class. I'm doing well. I'm a performer. I'm one of the top 2 students in my class. But I just can't pass this GMAT. And they're like, well, okay, then you can do that. Then. It was like, but that's the thing though. It's like these standardized tests. It doesn't gauge how intelligent someone is or how they can solve problems or anything like that. It's just how you take a test.
It's if you can memorize information.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the problem is even students, I mean, I did well on all that stuff and I did well on my SAT and blah, 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 but that's because I studied and memorized things.
Right.
I probably would struggle to pass some of that stuff now because you just don't, that's the problem with that kind of quick rapid fire memorization where you go in, you put it in your head, you go take the test, you do okay, and then you discard it because you don't need that anymore, especially if it's not for your life or whatever you've chosen. I mean, I'm going to do English. Do I need to know about biology and calculus and things like that anymore? And I took some high level math and statistics and calculus, and I was bad at it, and I slipped by with B's and C pluses and stuff, and then I couldn't do any of that anymore.
So the system that we have is very test taken standardized system for grading how well a school is or how well a class is.
Yeah, and it's there's some aspects of it that are kind of fundamentally broken, and not that I have all the answers either, but I think that somebody needs to take a look at it, preferably somebody in education, and really think about what it looks like to actually educate kids and prepare them for the future.
But is that someone in education to look at that though? I mean, think about that. If this is an industry or whatever you want to call it of people that are tenure, this is the way we did it. This is the way we do it. This is the curriculum. This is the curriculum I've done. This is the curriculum that was handed to me before me. Is it really should be an education? I mean, or should that? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I could see it either way because it's almost like oil and gas, right? Where you have a lot of older people that are either retiring or have been kind of forcefully retired or they're preparing to retire. And then you have all these new people coming in. And so there's the age gap and everything that everybody's been talking about for a while. It's almost like that in education. You have all these older teachers, and many of them, like you said, they're trying to last their 30 years so they can get their pension. And then they can roll out. And there's a lot of them like that right now. And so you have a lot of young people coming in too that maybe have those more radical ideas or ideas for change. And
who want to change the world.
Who want to change the world. And you have to have that nobility, which was where I was lacking. I just wanted to teach these little smart kids and help them be better writers and learn about all these great novels and help them gain these communication skills that they could carry forward, things like that. That was what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I realized it's not in me to go to a low income urban school with a bunch of failing kids and try and lift them up. That wasn't what I wanted to do. I somehow wanted to change it without doing that. I don't really know what
in reality, that's an uphill battle, it sounds like.
It is an uphill battle, and that's what we need that's a true educator.
That sucks.
That's why I have so much respect for educators, because if you can do that and you can take your salary, which is not good, it's never going to be good, you can take that and you still go every day and you try and do something to make a positive impact on the world. And teachers are the foundation of everything that we do and have, right? With no education, there's nothing.
They get the shit end of the stick, though.
Oh, they get stomped.
They do. I mean, they have to go in their own back pocket to get school supplies.
Yep. Just saw with somebody at Walgreens a couple days ago buying a bunch of markers and like white board things and stuff. It's just like
probably out of their pocket.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of stipend they get per year for that is like several $100s. It's just insane. I mean, and it's all underfunded and. Teachers should be making a boatload of money.
It should be an attractive market.
And there's something, I always kind of mess this up because I don't remember. I read this a long time ago, but there was some like experiment somewhere. I think it was in Washington D.C., but I could be wrong. Nobody quote me on this, but
don't don't worry about that.
But anybody who's out there, but they basically did this thing, and it was they had this idea where they would pay like a pilot group of teachers an enormous amount of money, like six-figure salary, which for teachers is incredible.
Right.
And let's give them all $120,000 a year. And then all of a sudden, the teachers are happy, the kids are flying in the sky, everybody's grades are going up, the schools are doing well, test scores are through the roof, life's good. Because happy employees, and everybody everywhere knows this, right? Talk to any HR person, happy employees mean happy companies.
Well, on that note, you look at the companies that you want to go to, Chick-fil-A, Southwest, Airlines, all these companies that the actual employees have buy-in and they have personality and they are happy. So yes, happy employees matter. Culture matters.
Yeah. And so they did that and it worked. And I don't know how we implement that at scale. I don't know where the money is from. Seems we can just kind of print money sometimes. So maybe we can just do that. But that could be a possibility is lift their pay. I remember looking at teaching and, my starting salary when I came out of my master's, it was like low 50,000 type range, and that's all set by HISD,
Right.
so you can't impact that at all. And then you got little like very small incremental raises every year or two, $500 here, $1,000 here, and if you were there 30 years, it capped out at like 72,000 or something like that.
So you know
your whole life.
Yeah.
You're never going to make more than that, and it's going to be this very slow, painful grind up towards that. And then you think people that get fresh out of college, you think a wireline engineer at Schlumberger is out in the field in a truck making $85,000, and it's taken a teacher 30 years to still not make that much. And so, I don't know how somebody can't look at that and think, yeah, it's kind of bad.
So how do you get the best minds to teach the future of our country? How do you get the best minds if you're paying them shit? You're not giving them a lot of money for school supplies or any support or anything like that. So
I think right now they're relying on a combination of the proud few who actually do feel education as a calling, which are unfortunately they're like you said, they're kind of beat down, but they still want to do it because they felt called to do it. It's servant mentality.
Well, whether it's a calling or not, you still have to make a living. You still want to be rewarded. To take a trip, have a nice dinner. Versus, okay, well, I got to get school supplies, whiteboards for
No, they need to be paid better. They are paid more, given more autonomy and freedom to kind of create plans and curriculum and things like that. That isn't so bound to this really, arbitrary set of goals and. Whether it's English, whether it's certain text that you're forced to read. Everybody has to read the Scarlet Letter. Or, I actually had a teacher it was my senior year, and she let us read a bunch of books that were actually outside of the curriculum, which was really cool. We read, I just drew a total blank, but it's the book that
we'll edit that out.
Yeah, right. But it's basically the book that Apocalypse Now was based on.
Okay.
And I'm just totally forgetting it, and that's kind of shameful for an English guy. But
you're on the spot.
But hey,
you're on the spot.
It'll come to me in like 30 minutes.
Yeah, it'll come to you when you're driving home.
But damn it. It's where the guy says the horror. It's just it's Apocalypse Now. So we read that, and we read Things Fall Apart, which was actually by an African author. And so we kind of went off into the weeds a little bit. We read some Russian lit with like Dostoevsky, and so that was cool.
Yeah.
And everybody loved that because it's like, we just don't have to read Dickens all year.
You're not doing the same shit that's been taught through the last 40 years. And And
hey, Dickens is good, right? He's a good writer, and I've read probably everything that he's ever written at some point. But just to go out of the little bubble. Because that's the thing, they're trying to narrowly teach certain like themes or ideas. Tale of Two Cities is all about paradox and conflict. Okay, so because then you can go to the tax test, and when it says in A Tale of Two Cities, what was the central theme? Was it A, paradox, B, and so then it's A, and you can go on there. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff. So it's good to pull people out of that. And we actually watched Apocalypse Now in class over 2 class periods, maybe 3. I don't know, because we had 52-minute class periods. So. And that was a violent movie and bloody and cursing and nudity and stuff. And hey, she brought a TV, wheeled a TV in, from the IT closet or whatever, and we watched it. And
that's when it's going to be a good day.
Yeah.
Right. Wheeling the TV with a strap on the top of the TV so it falls.
Times are good, boys. We're going places. But so that's a kind of teacher that makes a difference, right? Because they're willing to take a risk, and maybe she got slapped on the wrist for that. I don't know. But that's what we need more of.
I think it's good to kind of broaden or diversify, whatever you want to call it, your viewpoints. Whether you're getting it from, one news source, it's good to do it. Whether it's this, this literature, read Charles Dickens. It's good to kind of expand horizons because there's a lot of other different thought-provoking literature or ideas or thoughts out there.
Yeah, it's almost limitless.
Yeah, it is.
Even in college, like I said earlier, I studied British Romanticism, which is all the big like Wordsworth and Keats and Shelley, that group, Byron, that group of poets and authors. But I actually had this really like peripheral interest in all this other like out there stuff, like Japanese literature, French postmodernism. So I ended up taking like a French postmodern poetry class. And who knows if that did anything, but it was just like, I just needed to get out of it and just find this other stuff. And it was funny, when I was doing education, I had a class where my final project was to make an entire curriculum, like basically design a college course, pick all the texts, describe what the test would look like, how everything would be graded, attendance policies, conduct policies, everything. That was kind of like the final thing. And basically write this essay that was like 15, 20 pages explaining every step, why this, why that. And I actually did it for Japanese lit because nobody anywhere teaches Japanese lit because I don't know why, right? I mean, that's kind of thing. Unless you're in a small liberal arts college, probably in the north somewhere. In the south, nobody's teaching that stuff. So that was my idea, was like, let's go out, let's go balls to the wall with this thing. Like, let's find something crazy. Nobody's ever probably read any Japanese lit. You might have heard of one in passing, maybe a Haruki Murakami or something, or Kazuo Ishiguro. There's a few that are like Americans sometimes know who they are, but some of this stuff is just totally unknown. And I put it all together and submitted it, and life's good. And I remember when I was thinking about doing a PhD, and I went to my advisor, who was also the kind of like the, I don't know, executive sponsor or whatever for the rhetoric and composition, just kind of like the divergent paths you could take. You could either do literature or retcom, as they call it, rhetoric and composition. And I found that very boring. So for me, it wasn't worth me doing it. But I went to him and I was like, I have all these ideas. I want to do a PhD. And man, what if I go do like a PhD at Rice, and then I come back to U of H, and then I'll like create all these cool courses.
Yeah.
And same thing like
change the world.
Same thing like I was saying about high school. I had all these ideas, and he looked me dead in my eye, and he's like, what you want is never going to happen, right? And like
that just takes the window.
And you know what? It was painful, but I mean, honestly, thank God he did it, because a PhD is not easy, And I was about to dive into something that potentially would have had very little life impact otherwise. Like if I had a PhD now and I was still doing what I'm doing for oil and gas, it wouldn't matter. I wouldn't make any more money or anything. You're a doctor then, in literature. But he said that what you want to do, you're not in the right place. If you want to move up to New England somewhere or whatever and like figure it out, maybe they might let you do something like that. But here's what you're probably going to end up doing. You're going to teach an English like 1201 type and a 2201, kind of those entry level college, or high school kids are coming in and fresh out and trying to learn some basic skills that maybe they didn't get in high school. You're going to do that, and then maybe you'll have like one that you really want to do. So you might get to teach like British Romanticism or something. But the struggle was they already had such established tenured professors.
You're not changed. Nobody wants change.
You're not going to displace them.
No. And everyone's in it. And once change comes to the table, those tenured people don't want that. No. I remember when I was studying abroad, our grade wasn't made off the test. Just we're talking about the GMAT. It was whatever. A third of it was tests. A third of it was group participation, so that you learn how to work with a group on projects, so like, okay, you're responsible. And the other third of that was presentation. So there was actual skills like that you can take with you after that class that you can improve on. This is like, I feel like in the U.S., just like, okay, take the test, forget it.
Yeah,
and cram, take it, forget it.
Well, that's why you hear those horror stories about people get their first job and they've never used a printer, right? They don't know how to scan a document. Like they've never done this or that on a computer because
we're learning long division. We should be learning how to balance checkbooks or look at stuff like that. Yeah. I get that.
You come with people, and even like you hear that about oil and gas, right? Where maybe they do a petroleum engineering degree or some kind of specialized degree, and then they come out. And I heard this all the time when I was at LR. I worked with a lot of guys they were BOP specialist guys, and they'd been out in the field and worked on all these things. LR VP had patents on the Cameron type U. These were like heavy hitter dudes. And they said, every time we get somebody new in here, they've read all these textbooks and they have all this, knowledge of all the way it's made and the parts and the equipment, but they've never been in the field. They've never seen anything. And not that I'm one to talk, I'm not in the field, but for that discipline.
But you understand the importance of
that. They don't get it, because reading a book is one thing, experiencing something is another, which is probably a whole other argument for why don't we have more experiential learning and things like apprenticeships and internships and stuff like that have kind of not really been in favor in the U.S.
My dad's a professor, and he echoes exactly that. He's like, the toughest things right now is those professors that have not had any real world experience, and they're trying to teach you about. He's an accountant professor, about teaching about accounting practices, but he's like, that stuff like that does not fly in the real world. So that's why you need that experience in order to speak to the subject.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't just have the textbook knowledge. So anyway, the education system, you can't change the entire U.S. education system.
Unfortunately,
what next?
Yeah.
What bring us up to where you're at today, because I want to talk about that.
Yeah. So that didn't work out. One got kept on going. Got my master's.
You think you'll ever go back to teaching?
Probably not.
Some sort of capacity?
Probably not. And I hate to say something like if I had to. I've always kind of thought in my mind if I had to, but I also don't want to be that person. Okay. like, because I respect the profession too much to be like, oh, I'll just go teach and make a little, make ends meet.
Right.
That just seems kind of duplicitous. But yeah, when I was waiting tables for a long time, doing some restaurant stuff, and so I kind of kept going after I got my master's. Did that for a little while, when the teaching and all that, it hadn't worked out. And I got a job at Lloyd's Register through an agency. Did some contract work with them. I was hourly. It was really simple. It was basically, the company had formed a new division from the acquisition of two companies that did primarily BOP inspections for like compliance and statement of fact and all the stuff that was getting submitted to Bessie or whoever. So I went over there, and what we called them our deliverables. And my group, or the group I was in, we were responsible for editing and rewriting those, so that because I guess this was back when print was more of a thing, and we were putting together these massive binders, 1,000 pages and stuff, and then we're shipping them out to some guy, so some dude in an Apache office can put this thing in a dark room somewhere and shove it away, just in case the government comes calling. Right?
Put it on that shelf.
Yeah. But that was our job, was that, and I was there a year. It was a great intro. Like I mentioned, all these incredible minds over on the technical side. I saw it wasn't going anywhere quick, but I love the people. I had a great opportunity. Left there to go to NOV. I knew nothing about what I was going to do at NOV.
Tell me about that. How did you go from Lloyd's Register to NOV? I mean, you were contract work and you just went over to NOV?
Yeah, well, I was looking for a job for about 3 months, and it was funny because I never wanted to be a job hopper, and then I was pretty quickly a job hopper. But I looked for a job, and then I think it happens a lot. I had this flood of jobs at one time. I had 4 things come through that wanted interviews and gave offers and stuff, and I kind of saw my life taking, a path, one of several paths. I mean, a couple of them were oil and gas. So I actually had an interview with Stewart Stevenson.
And your dad was in oil and gas.
And my dad had been in oil and gas before I was born.
So you're familiar with it.
So I already knew all about the,
Gotcha.
Or I knew as much as a kid could. But so I had the NOV, which had come through for a writing job. It was called Marketing and Technical Communications.
Okay.
Stewart Stevenson was like a content job. And then a law firm, of all things, wanted me to do business development for their oil and gas practice.
Okay.
So that was I saw either I'm going to go into oil and gas, or I'm going to do this weird law firm, and
that's going to be dealing with oil and gas.
That's going to kind of be dealing with
either way. You're connected to oil and gas. Either way.
But it was I went to the interview at the law firm, and I was kind of wowed by it at first, awed by it, because it was the 37th floor of this beautiful building. I think it was the old BG Tower. I don't know what it is now.
Was that downtown?
Downtown.
Okay.
And I went up there, and I'm suited and tied, and had my shiny shoes and my Mont Blanc, and life's good. I'm wearing my dad's Rolex. I'm ready, guys. And I did 3 interviews, and I was like, am I going to do this every day? Is this me? You kind of get wowed. I'm looking out over this panoramic view, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I want to work here. And then I started doing interviews, and I was like, wait a second. I'm going to be like an events boy. That was basically what they wanted, was someone to help them build up contact lists and help with events and, networking and stuff like that.
So pretty much what I do.
Yeah, which was crap. No, but I don't know. Just some of the interview processes were just not for me, and they did a lot of this psychoanalysis.
No, I get that. I mean, that's the thing. If it's just like walking in a house. If you walk in a house, you don't feel in your gut that this is your house.
Yeah.
Don't go for it.
I knew it when they started saying well, what's your greatest weakness, and what's the biggest challenge you've overcome? What's your favorite accomplishment? It's like, man, can I just leave now? Would it be inappropriate for me to just leave? But so then I went to NOV, and I interviewed there, and it was great. I met my first boss. His name was Jason Hedgepeth, just a phenomenal guy. Still a friend to this day. I mean, my NOV people, this little core group that I had when I started, we still have group chats. We talk every day.
Okay.
I mean, I love these guys and gals. But interviewed with him, did well enough to get called back. And it's funny because I was in our pressure control group facility out in off of Eldridge in West Louisville, York.
Okay.
Kind of approaching the Boons, not too bad. And I went in a full suit and tie, same thing, and they laughed me out of the building. They thought it was hilarious. And he said, "Man, if you come back, you can't wear a suit and tie again if we bring you back for interview number 2, because these guys think you're like an insurance agent, like you're here to collect money." Or,
no, man, I'm just someone that wants the job.
I'm like, man, come on, I thought look how fresh I look. But so they did call me back. I went to a different facility for the second interview, and I met his boss, his name Melissa Pastrano, who was another just one of the most amazing professionals I ever met. I mean, fiery, passionate spirit, loads of integrity, knew what was right and wrong, would fight for her people, and also a lot of vision, a team builder.
Okay.
One of those rare people that can just pick amazing people and bring them all together.
It doesn't surround themselves with people that are just like them. They actually pick different strengths and weaknesses to blend them. Yeah.
So I went to this second interview, and it was in Parkwood, which is the corporate headquarters, and it was up on the 7th floor, and they're actually preparing for an quarterly investor meeting or investor presentation type thing. And I went to the office. I was talking to Jason, and then Melissa came in. I met her for the first time, and she sat on the end of the desk. There was kind of like Jason's behind the desk, and I'm on the other side. She just came and sat on the end of the desk, and I was kind of telling Jason about some of my challenges at LR and some of the really bad stuff. I mean, they were like micromanaging me and, looking at what, when I went to the bathroom, how long I was gone, just crazy.
That creates so much employee loyalty. I can't describe it.
I don't know why I'm not still going. And then
you have to hall pass and go TT. Okay, gotcha.
And so she caught the end of it, and she just looked at me and she said, "Oh yeah, we're not about that shit here. You're going to be happy here." And that it was it. I knew. I was like, boom, it's done. I'm ready. I don't care if the law firm even gives me more money or whatever. Bada bing, bada boom. I got the job. Started in what was called Dynamic Drilling Solutions, another kind of newly formed business, bringing together some legacy technology and commodity items from MD Topco, like pressure gauges and sensors and all that crap. And then with new, cool, shiny tech around drilling automation, drilling optimization, drilling dynamics, stuff like that. Did that for a couple of years, loved it, moved offices a couple times, kept learning, writing papers, writing case studies.
Okay.
That was what they hired me to do, was to build up their marketing portfolio.
Okay.
Because it was this new business that had no market equity, but it had these huge brand names in the back. I mean, MD Topco had been around for a century or something. I mean, it'd been around for a long time. And some of their other products like Black Box and their downhole tools that had a lot of.
You probably got pretty good exposure also to, I guess, the technology of the industry at the time, right? By writing all the content and writing the papers, and kind of like you're kind of learning about the technology as well, not only creating the content.
That's probably, to this day, I mean, as far as being a non-technical guy, I mean, that's probably still what I can talk about the most competently is downhole and drilling dynamics and stuff like that, because that was my favorite topic. It always was. Drilling automation was like my thing. Drilling optimization, love that stuff.
Well, we're not here to talk about that today because I know very little about that. So let's keep pushing forward.
But don't worry. But so I was there for a couple of years, and then they did a big corporate reorg. Okay. Everybody loves those, and they put us all into a shared services model. So all of us writers and animators and graphic designers and everything, we all got lumped together in this giant team in a consolidation effort. There were just, because every business unit had these people, and it was just a lot of people. It was like 150 people. It's pretty substantial marketing group. And they put us all together, basically the same thing, and I was blessed. I still reported to Melissa, so now I reported directly to her instead of through Jason, so you had to get down and thank God for that. And basically did the same thing, but they just said, now just do everything for the entire company instead of one business.
Okay.
So you're just going to write all the stuff and do everything for everybody now.
How'd you feel about that?
Daunted. I was daunted by it at first, and then I wasn't. It was fine, because I loved learning. I was like, I want to get it. I mean, when you're talking about torque and drag and drill string dynamics and how the pipe works and casing deformation, it's like I want to know it all.
Well, it seems like you do. I mean, you're talking about, that teacher that really motivated you, that allowed you to read other stuff besides Dickens. I mean, it seems like you kind of want to expand your knowledge regardless what you're doing.
Well, I never wanted to be the guy. My big thing was like, I don't want to go in here and them to think that I'm just a guy that puts words on the page.
Right.
I don't want to.
What do you want to be?
I want to be an expert. Okay. As much of an expert as I can be given my background.
Did you have any goal while you were there? Did you want to stay in that role or doing that? I mean, what was your end goal?
My idea was to keep on rising up, and doing the writing type stuff, and then eventually kind of lead the team that oversaw the content and all the marketing stuff. So the way it worked was I reported into Melissa, who then became Director of Digital Media and Communications, and then there was a VP above her, and it kept going. So my hope then, which I probably didn't even talk to anybody about, was basically I'm hoping that by just going in there and hitting home runs and kicking ass every day, that I'm going to get to be basically to like Melissa's level, but they'll break me off and I'll be managing communications or content or whatever we'll call it. That was in my mind.
Okay.
And I thought if I just do this long enough, but my trajectory, I was always much shorter. I'm like, if I do a really amazing job for 2 years, what's going on, boys? You know, why do I have to keep on? Where's my promotion? Where's my raise? Where's whatever? And maybe I'm looking for it too fast. I don't know. But the industry was like, it was suffering, but it was not. And you know, it wasn't as bad maybe as it is now. It wasn't 2020. You know, as we know from where I am now, that never happened, and not through really any fault of anybody's. It just kind of didn't work out that way. And shortly, kind of, I don't know, maybe 9 months or so before I left, I had a reporting change. So they took me out from under Melissa, despite much protest. Again, you know, I wasn't the best negotiator. I'm a bit too fiery, so I got kind of angry about it, and we had some heated conversations with me and my leadership, and they didn't like that, which is fine. But so then, hey, you know what? Yeah, right. I just shut up and do it. You know. So I got moved to report to a different guy. His name was Mike Gaines. You might have actually heard him. He does NOV's podcast.
I've heard of Mike.
Yeah, and Mike was a great guy. I'd known him since I'd started. He was in DDS, Dynamic Drilling Solutions, the same time I was. He managed a inclination product line called Flow Drift and Flow Survey. So we'd known each other a long time. I started working for him, and nothing was wrong with it or anything. I just saw it wasn't going anywhere, increasingly so. And they let go of one of the writers, and so it kind of was down to me and one other person. And my efforts just weren't bearing fruit, no matter what I did.
Okay.
And so I just knew it. I just knew it was time. You know, I love the people. Like I said, great friends and stuff. I love the company. I had nothing against it. It was just sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
I get it.
Yeah. So I left, and they did let me manage a couple employees for a little while. So that was cool. I got a little touch or a little taste of management. And
do you like that?
I did, and I won't argue I'm a great manager or anything. I didn't have enough time to really figure it out. And you know, the gal I managed, we had already worked together for a year or two, so we already knew each other really well, and the relationship was already there. And it was a surprise to everybody. You know, to her, she was like, "How'd this happen?" and stuff. And because I was more senior, but we were fairly comparable. I mean,
damn divine.
And I'm like, hey, I mean, this is what we're doing. Here's where we are.
I don't know,
but no,
don't ask questions.
She's awesome. I mean, when she left shortly after I did, I actually hooked up with somebody at Schlumberger and tried to help her out because.
So where'd you go after NOV?
To Jar Data.
Okay.
Yeah, here we are, and
so how long ago was that?
November 2019, year and a couple months. Yeah.
All right.
So right before, and I got hired again. This industry and how small it is, and everybody knows each other. And the gal that hired me there, I had worked with her at NOV. She'd been in Teleserve, which did wired drill pipe.
Okay.
And so wired drill pipe interfaces with all the drilling dynamic stuff. These are like the two things that are making the automation happen. Part of it. And so we had already worked together closely. I knew her. We talked over the years a little bit here and there. And we just started talking about, me coming over. She needed a writer. And I really only had one other thing lined up, which was with Engie, which is a big renewables company. And the Engie thing, I'd went through like all these interviews,
right.
5 interviews, and everything's suit and tie and, polished and practiced and made sure it's all perfect. And I was gung-ho. I was ready to do this thing. And I talked to Jennifer. Her name is Jennifer Cann. I talked to Jennifer, and she was like, "I need a writer. I'll bring you over. How's the salary sound? I think it's fair. How's that sound? Is this this is what you're worth?" And blah blah blah. And it was good, and everything was fine. I was like, I just need to see this other thing through first and see what happens. But I'm on board. I went out and toured the facility, and I met her VP and all that. And the Engie thing fell through right at the end. I actually had the job. And then then they said they were going to put it on hold. So I had to make a decision of, do I wait for them, to maybe do it or whatever,
or do I lose,
lose working with and for a friend of mine, or do I just go? And so I made the decision just go to Jar Data. I told Jennifer it just didn't work out right. I can't just waste my life away waiting for a possibility. So I went to Jar Data, and life was good for 4 months. And
what do you mean? What happened? So you get to Jar Data, data, whatever you want to call it. Depends where you're at, Mason-Dixon line, whatever.
Potato.
So you go there. English background, technical writing background, but it's what you do is marketing. Mm-hmm. it's yes, you graduated, you got your master's, you got your undergrad in English and English, whatever, technical, fill me in, help me out.
English literature is my
English
degree,
literature.
yeah.
But the thing is, now here you are sitting, and you're the content creator, or content development manager at Gyrodata. So it is marketing, So it's kind of cool seeing how, like, a lot of people are very, well, I don't have that degree, I don't have this degree, I don't have that degree, like, I didn't study that. But that just goes to show that it doesn't matter what degree you have.
Yeah, you just got to make it happen.
It's transferable.
I mean,
It's transferable.
I did it. I went to U of H maybe 2018, I think, and I actually gave a presentation to some students about that very topic. That the Dean of Undergraduate Studies for English sponsored me to go do, and I gave a little hour, presentation about here's how you can transition an English degree into all these other things. Because if it's energy, oil and gas, chemicals, whatever, they need technical writing. If they have executives, they probably need PR and speech writing. They might need investor relations. They might need marketing communications or copywriting for advertising. I mean,
there's so many.
If you see a commercial on TV that has a script, somebody wrote that, right? When you see an ad in a magazine or whatever that has a paragraph of copy on it, somebody wrote that. So all these are.
Have you always viewed what you do as marketing?
No, I mean, what's funny is I've always really tried to separate myself from from marketing, which is funny. Marketing has a bad rap. Number one, it's viewed as overhead a lot of times.
Okay.
So you have this real struggle about why does what I do matter?
Yeah.
How do I bring value? How do I generate revenue? Well, I can't. So what do I do? How does what I do maybe or maybe not? So, and there's kind of the I feel like marketing, it goes in two ways. And so there's what I like to do, which is like really factual, semi-technical, straight up case studies with project successes that validate their proof of performance. They validate what we do. You should run this gyro because we saved the guy 6 hours NPT, blah, 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 whatever. Or you write articles in these different publications that are more long form stuff that explains it in greater detail, get into what the technology does. Podcasting, that's something I started at Gyrodata. They were on one podcast in 2019, and then we were on 29 in 2020. So
really?
did okay on that. On that
number
front.
2 for 2021 because I saw that. Who did Crude Audacity?
Yeah,
the one
Alan and Ezra. Yep,
that's right.
Yep. So this is number 2, and I think there's already 4 or 5 other ones in the works. So because I really bought into podcasting.
I want to get Sean White up here.
Let's do it, man. Yeah, let's do it.
Here.
Oh yeah, we might have to, put a bag over his head and drag him in.
We'll do
whatever. That's fine.
I'm fine with that. I love that guy.
Did you hear the other one he did? He did one a while back on oil and gas offshore. Yeah.
Did he really?
Yep.
Sean, if you're listening, very disappointed you're not telling me this. Okay, go on. Sorry about that.
But yeah, so I wanted to get him involved in different stuff, and those things to me, the other side of marketing is the really creative stuff. It's kind of off the wall, and I personally don't think this industry is the right place for that. This isn't for that really out there creative marketing type stuff.
Let's get on this. Okay, let's get on this rabbit hole. Why?
Because I don't think that sells products. Now, before I go too deep, I'm okay with a little bit. I'm okay with some of it. You put some memes up sometimes, or people make some things that are funny or whatever. I'm on board. We definitely could benefit from switching it up sometimes.
Yes.
Operative word sometimes, right? But if it's nothing but that, how do you sell something? How do I get a sales guy to go out to a rig or even to a customer office, and he wants to sell our new wellbore tortuosity logging thing, and they say, well, what the hell is that? Why do I want that? Well, remember you had that artificial lift system that failed after 4 days and your well stopped producing? What if I told you I had something that you could run a gyro downhole and get a 3D view of your wellbore and understand why it failed? I'll tell you why it failed, because it was in a dog leg that was, multiple degrees of inclination more than it should have been. That sucker needs to be 500 feet that way.
Right.
And by the way, if you don't believe me, here you go. I'll just leave this on your desk. Here's the case study. It's done. It works. Bada bing, bada boom.
Right.
So that kind of stuff, that to me is what could potentially lead to, if not a sale, at least interest or an inquiry. But can you do that with I don't know. Can you do that with a meme or something? I don't know.
No, I don't. I mean, I don't think so. But let's talk about this. So I feel historically, the oil and gas industry, it has been very the marketing and the content has been strictly, case studies or white papers and all that stuff, which is, I think, is needed to, as what you were saying, the techno-terminal gyro data tool, whatever you just said. I think it's crucial to have that stuff, because if I'm a serious potential end user, I might want to see that. Actually, I will want to see that.
Yeah.
That being said, I do think I have seen a huge surge or an explosion of an online presence when it comes to different companies marketing. So I'm 40. I make memes now. You know what I mean? I started doing that for a reason. I started doing that. I mean, it's all like, yeah, it's fun and games, but it's not. It's for reasons to draw people in. It's just so as people see, around the Rotary, so they, potentially, as they see you, they see this guy. And another side benefit is so they see CPC, so there's, I've seen a huge explosion in new styles and new techniques to market, whether it's memes, whether it's these creative different things, whether it's drone flybys and bringing people. Yeah. It's a lot more live now than it was 11 months ago.
Yeah. And, I'm definitely on board with some of that kind of stuff, because exactly what you just said. I mean, we're in our COVID world where people are hiding out. Yep. Everything's consumed digitally. I mean, hell, even the publications, I think only one has a print magazine at this point. It's Drilling Contractor.
Really?
Everybody else went digital, including JPT, which was a shock to me, at least.
Oh man, those are the best ones, sitting around a customer's lobby.
Yes, flagship publication. Yeah. But I mean, that thing's getting shipped out to 70,000 people, so it's like that's a lot of money to ship that thing around. So it's kind of, I guess SP didn't have enough money. I don't know, but it's all digital now.
But I'm not saying that, like if you are launching a marketing campaign, hey, focus on memes. I'm saying it needs to bring, I guess, a holistic approach to it. You need to create content to get viewers in, and you have to actually have the target approach, such as the case studies. So I think it's kind of
some stuff for visibility and just to build a brand and to attract interest and even have a little fun. 100% on board.
I've been excited to see LinkedIn, what it is, besides all the political bullshit out there. I've been excited to see how companies are, getting creative. You know what I mean? Whether they're incorporating, downhole DWS has been doing the Power Glide. They've been doing like Captain America. Like, it's like, what? Like, I don't get that, but I dig it. It's cool seeing the innovation, I guess, over the past 11 months, because how do you get in front of people these days? How do you communicate your company's personality? Yeah,
no, that's for sure. I mean, and that's something, totally agree. You can't, as far as brand building and creating kind of an image of, the culture or whatever you want to call it. Technical papers and all that can't do that. I mean, those have one potential purpose, and it's sales enablement. But the other stuff, that you need that for everything else. And now it's more or less challenging, maybe depending on where you are, right? I mean, because depending on the size of the company, the resources at your disposal, I mean,
the leadership allowing you
to wanting. And so do you have kind of like NOV, for example, does stuff like that sometimes because the CMO is very creative like that. David Reed. Yeah. So he wants to do all that kind of stuff. And he's a C-suite executive. Clay's a C-suite executive. He trusts his other person to do what he needs to do.
I think we got to come on the podcast later this month.
Yeah. And I mean, and he was like my boss's boss for a little while, so I mean, we worked with him a lot. So company of that size, they can do it really effectively because they have graphic designers and artists and animators and all these people. They have all these resources. For me to do that, for example,
I'm sitting from a PowerPoint.
I mean,
I'm in PowerPoint.
Well, I can't even if I want to. I'm a writer. Somebody the other day was like, "Do you have Adobe Creative Suite skills?" It's like, bro, I can open Adobe Reader. Like that's as far as I'm going.
Is it on the App Store? Yeah. Download it.
Yeah. Is that how you say YouTube in your language?
Do you see the content that companies are putting out there? I mean, you can speak to Gyro Data if you want to, or you can speak on a broader level. Do you see the content companies are out there evolving over the past, I guess, we're recording this in January 8th of 2021. Do you see the content changing or kind of shifting to a certain theme or themes, I guess, over the past 11 months, 12 months?
Yes, for sure. I mean, as far as Gyro Data, not as much. I mean, because we're private.
Right.
We're not, beholden to investors and investment sentiment and all that. So that's a little different. We just focus more narrowly on what's important to us. So whether it's a certain piece of technology or, a certain success or what somebody's doing or whatever, that kind of stuff. That's what we do. But for the industry as a whole, a lot more focus on ESG is this really dominant topic, and definitely a lot more focus around, things like digital and remote ops and all that kind of stuff. And how does that all tie into that side of it for the investment community, because they're trying to appease both, an investment community that doesn't want to give us money anymore, that's pulled money and sees that this industry is not giving returns. So how do you convince them that you're going to make money, and how do you convince them that you're going to do this in a way that's sustainable? I mean, that's environmentally conscious and sustainable. And a lot of the messaging, the sad thing is, a lot of our messaging centers just on ESG as this really high level thing, like, hey, we're going to be greener.
That's the thing, dude.
We put some solar panels out there.
That's the thing, though. Everyone's talking about ESG right now. I mean, but is it a buzzword? I mean, do people think I feel like it's a buzzword these days versus actually people actually not getting it, but like.
No, I mean, there's some aspect of that, I think, because it's been tossed around so liberally that people.
It's easy to catch on.
ESG.
Yeah, ESG. Oh,
you're going to do a new ESG report, right?
I'm going to pick some ESG up at the store. I'll be at location Tuesday.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's that aspect of it. And a lot of it is these companies are making these kind of really half-hearted or even fake attempts to look like they're green, quote unquote. And what we need is reality. What we need is what's actually happening. Like I was telling you earlier, that's why I liked Engie, was because they divested all this stuff and they got rid of their E&P assets with GDF Suez, and they got rid of, Engie was GDF Suez, so that was the rebrand. But I knew that. But they got rid of their E&P, they got rid of their LNG side, they sold almost all of their coal. So really all they have now is their core gas, which at least is, hopefully everybody can admit, they can't, but everybody should admit that this is like okay and, pretty environmentally okay. And they have, wind and solar and bio and all that. And they put their money where their mouth was, and they said, all right, we have these lucrative businesses that we're just going to sell off and invest in all this new stuff because we're going to be net zero, and that's going to be the thing. So that's a little different than somebody saying 80% of our revenue is still going to come from hydrocarbon E&P, and we're going to keep drilling wells and doing all and drilling, completing wells, and putting the oil, in the barrel, and life's good, and send that stuff off. But we're green now. Look, we're going to build some panels, okay? Look, man, there's a new wind farm. Look how beautiful the wind farm is. And it's like, yeah, but if your fundamental mission or what you do isn't changing, I'd rather you focus on the story and the importance of what you do, which is providing, in general, low-cost, abundant energy to the world,
right,
and allowing people to live their lives like they do. That's what we do, right? That's what we do every day, or not me specifically, but that's what our people do, is enable us to live the lives the way we live them. And how do you tell those stories and talk about our people and what they do and the sacrifice they make, and they're working in environments and dangerous.
So what you just said right there, I think that is a key thing. Kind of I want to segue into next. I mean, right now in our industry, I mean, there's people that are just loud and proud, oil and gas. Like that's not. I mean, yes, in our community, that's great. We get it though. Our community, you have to convince that we love the oil and gas industry for what we do, how we provide, low cost energy to the world, how we provide jobs, support communities. You don't need to sell anyone on that. But I feel like us as an industry does such a poor story on winning the hearts and minds based on telling stories. We're so fact driven. Like, that jacket you're wearing has 3% hydrocarbons. How do you feel about that? That's not a story.
Yeah.
That's a fact, and that's not going to. So I kind of wanted to bring this up right now, if you don't mind, if we segue into this right now.
Yeah.
And I'm basing this on kind of something that piqued my interest. You commented on something on LinkedIn recently that was kind of it was said, are we finally getting the tipping point in the defeat of fossil fuels? Kind of phrasing it up that it's fossil fuels in one corner versus renewables in the other corner. Can you talk to me about number one? And I don't know where this is going to go. I'm fine with it. I'm just going to throw a lot of shit on the table. I want you to pick up what you want to and go. Number one, let's break it down. Fossil fuels versus renewables. Give me your stance on that. And I love your stance on this, and I would love for other people to hear it. But it's not an us versus them mentality,
No.
and you've been promoting that, and this is actually something that us as an industry can actually take. So if we are having these conversations with people that hate us because we're the new coal or new tobacco, whatever you want to call it, can you kind of give me your thoughts or your position on fossil fuels versus renewables?
Yeah, I mean, first off, like you said, I mean, this mentality of it being us versus them, and even fossil fuels or oil and gas versus everyone. It's often not even just renewables. It feels like it's everyone in the world.
You see that meme I did about the Wonder Woman in 1984?
Yeah.
Where the main villain is
I commented on that same thing. It's like
I dug it.
this is we're gonna have a bunch of freaking 7-year-olds they want to be woke, and so they're gonna say oil and gas bad, But no, I mean my take is this mentality of us versus them, it accomplishes nothing, and it's defeating. And articles like that have these hyperbolic headlines around, it's clickbait. They want to get I hate to go that deep, but I mean they really want to get like far left political green advocates to click on something.
Well, but also here's the deal. Also, another thing, the us versus them mentality. It's not just fossil fuels. It's everything right now in our world right now. You know what I mean? Everything. I mean, whether it's the type of clothing you wear, whether it's where you go eat your lunch, whether it's if you wear a mask or not, whether it's if you care about this, whether you wash your hands 3 times a day. Everything is kind of this versus that, and it shouldn't be that way.
Everything's polarized.
Sorry. Yeah. So go on.
No, I mean you're absolutely right. Everything's polarized. It's like everything needs to be an argument.
Like you have to be in a camp.
Yeah, you must feel this way, right?
Why?
And you must feel one way or the other. It's like, hey, look, I almost work for a renewables company. I'm on board with the idea of renewable energy. Like, I'm actually, I wrote something effective like, I'm happy when I see successful renewable projects. There's no reason for me not to be happy. But, that doesn't mean that we can replace oil and gas tomorrow. And that's the weird rallying cry around renewables is like, oh, the world's burning and climate change and stuff. I'm like, look, I believe in climate change. I can see it. I'm not going to say it's fake, but that doesn't mean that unless you want to go back to the Stone Age, right? If we're going to live in mud huts with lighting fires with sticks, Boy Scout style, you can't get there.
Okay, so here I'm going to phrase this question for you. Let's say I'm Roughneck Jerry and I'm standing there, in line, ready to get a hamburger. And someone has this conversation with me about renewable energies and how they're great and fossil fuels are bad. How would you handle that?
Well,
so like people out there listening, I mean, you engage in rational, logical dialogue. Like, hey, look, we're not against renewables. We're not. That being said,
yeah, I mean that's really what I would tell anyone that is arguing that way would be, I see where you're coming from, right? This isn't a confrontation. It's not like something I said, like it's not a battle. There's no need for this. And I see where you're coming from. I'm on board, and I can even admit there's some bad things about oil and gas. We made a lot of strides. Things that were taking a long time 10 years ago take an hour now.
Yeah.
And people aren't on, in the red zone all the time. They're off site or they're somewhere safe where they won't be in harm's way and getting their thumbs lopped off because they're throwing chains and equipment's automated. And I mean, the list of all this stuff goes on and on, whether that's for ESG or HSE or whatever you want to call it, even just process efficiency and how fast we can get resources out of the ground without damaging the environment. So we made a lot of progress. So I'd definitely say that, because some people are just like, oh, it's so terrible. It's like, you should have seen it 40 years ago. Yeah, maybe then it was terrible when wells were gushing oil and stuff all over the place.
Isn't it safer to work on a rig than I remember when I was in HSE at Noble? I remember it was safer to work on a rig, an offshore platform, than it was to work at like McDonald's or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, with how far all that's come, I would say, I guess a rig that's following all the procedures correctly for sure. But yeah, I mean, that wouldn't surprise me because there's so much technology. There's been so much innovation, and that's what I tell the non-believer too is, I'm on board. I want to see progress just as bad as you do. I want my grandchildren and their grandchildren. I want the human race to have a planet to live on.
Yeah.
Before the sun crashes into it in 3 billion years or whatever. I want us to last, So I'm on board, but just think rationally about this. Yeah, but think rationally about this. And maybe it only takes 100 years. Maybe it takes 200. Maybe it takes 500. I don't know. I don't have my crystal ball. But I would say, think about what you have right now, and think about the way you live your life, and just understand that that's the result or the product of what you loathe. So there's a lot of irony in what you're saying, right?
and you know what's funny too? It's like, I have not met one person in the oil and gas yet, and I'm sure there are people out there, I just haven't met them yet, that are against renewable energy. You know what I mean?
Typically not.
We're in a dance right now, which is fine, but at the same time, until they figure their wallets out, or they figure their two-step out, whatever you want to call it, we're still going to be providing the necessary jobs, the necessary the energy for these people to have.
That's a great point. You don't even consider the job implications when people say comments like that. This industry employs hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, right? I mean, so where do all those people go? Where do these drilling engineers go and stuff? Like, this is a resource not only that's enabling you to live your life the way you live it, but it's also enabling people to feed their families. I mean, this is serious, right? Like, and people that are incredibly intelligent, highly skilled. They have talents that very few other people have. There's SMEs and all that.
Isn't like one drilling rig like one drilling rig impacts like 800 or something like that jobs or people or something like that,
because once you're all through the procurement and supply chain and ops and everything, and the actual and field coordination and actual rig staff and blah blah blah. I mean,
but going back, here's the deal. It's not. It doesn't have to be us versus them. It doesn't have to be not everything has to be a battle. It can be a conversation. Like, look, I get where you're coming from. I dig that too. I respect. But we're not there yet.
No, I mean, definitely there's room for collaboration and for dialogue. I mean, that's what we need to do. Is we're working on it, right? We've got carbon capture, CCUS. We've got geothermal has gotten crazy in the past, year with all these new projects and stuff. We've got, we're already incorporating solar and biofuels into our processes and how we run equipment and how we power things. Hell, I know we had a solar pump in a village in Kenya that provided water for like 600 kids. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. It might not be Kenya, it was something like that, and that's incredible.
Even the flaring. I mean, I had Jonathan Brignac on here with a Edge Virtual pipeline, and they're capturing the methane. They're actually converting it to diesel, so they're saving costs and all that stuff. So it's one of those things. So let's talk about industry advocates. This is kind of the segue. So I noticed on that post you did on LinkedIn. I mean, the way you engaged with this person, it wasn't you weren't digging your heels in the sand. It was a very good, even though the responses you were getting were kind of shitty. They'd be like, "Oh, so you're saying you want grandma to die?" No, I'm not saying that, asshole. Just listen. But
can you read?
how can the oil and gas industry be industry advocates? Not on this grand scale. Us as an industry need to be doing this, but how can we do it on a personal level?
Yeah.
When you have these conversations with someone, when you hear about something like this, what is the best way that you feel would be to engage in a conversation like this?
I think to be non-confrontational. That's what I always try to do. There's nothing going to be gained by me fighting with somebody on LinkedIn about something they don't agree with me with, especially if their comment is already showing some vitriol. I mean, if you're already fighting with me when I've posted something that's sane and rational, and hey, if you don't agree, that's okay. Let's talk or let's have a discussion. But as soon as you start flinging, insults and stuff, I mean, I think some guy said something. He was like, "Well, you're the misguided one." It's like,
I saw that.
It's like, no, that's just not even worth it anymore, because you lost me. I don't care. I don't even need to change your mind.
You know what I always say? Whenever someone's so dug in like that, I always say, okay, is there anything I can say right now to make you change your mind? And if there's not, then I don't have that conversation.
Yeah. It's a waste of time.
It's a waste of time.
So I would approach it, as rationally and kind of politely as we can. I mean, and that's what you see a lot of on both sides. Even oil and gas people, they get guilty of, they rely on these cliches of, well, if you don't like oil and gas, you should let your home be cold in the winter type
you
arguments.
shouldn't wear your lipstick.
Yeah,
Don't take your medicine.
Did you know those wind turbine, those blades go in the ground and they can't be recycled? And it's like, look, I get it, and
Don't argue facts.
and I get it. That's bad, and that is bad. But perfect, exactly what you said earlier about we're an insular community, and we all love to pat each other on the back about all this kind of stuff. So you talking about we can't recycle wind blades? Everybody knows this.
Yes.
You're not going to change any renewable advocate's mind about it by saying that. So all you're going to do is reinforce your existing viewpoint or bias by talking about that. Oh, they kill birds. I've heard that before.
So do we.
You know what kills
First
more?
off, you know what kills more birds? People in the oil field.
Yeah,
That's what kills more birds when it's dove season.
Hunting, right? Yeah, I mean,
don't even that shit.
pretty much anything but a wind turbine. So I mean, we don't need to approach it that way, right? That because that accomplishes for both sides, and both sides are guilty of it. And then renewables people say, oh, oil and gas are polluting, this and that. There was a Bloomberg article that was a while back, and the artist, and it had another headline about some hyperbolic, the death of oil, finally we can save the world type nonsense. And the first image, it showed a picture, and it was a cartoon, like a stylized, and it had a picture of this like orange, like toxic barrel in the middle of a forest, and it had holes punctured in it, and it was leaking this like purplish black liquid all over the forest, and all the trees are wilting and dying.
That's what the oil and gas industry loves.
Yeah, and I mean, I was actually talking to a guy at IEDC, and I was like, that's weird. Is that how we store oil? Like, I had no idea. So are you telling me we put single barrels of oil in random like glens in the forest?
Well, you have to punch holes in it. You have to punch holes in it.
Somebody's got to do it.
A bird. Yeah.
Is that a job? Like, can I get hired to do that like part time? I mean, but that's the thing. It's like, and people actually think that. That's how blind they are. They'll see that and be like, those oil bastards polluting our forest, and it's like,
but it's up to us. But time out. But it's up to us. Educate. We need to educate, not in a way where it's like, oh well,
yeah,
the deodorant you use is this.
Don't patronize.
No. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's like having any conversation. It's like, no, I get it. I do. That being said.
And I'm willing to be, and that's my thing, I'm willing to be educated too, like something I don't know or something about renewables that I'm not aware of, and I always ask that kind of stuff. I'm like, if you can inform me of an alternative to internal combustion engine cars that are gasoline powered, that's more widely available at the same price point for the average consumer and better for the environment, if you can tell me about that, hey, my ears are open. But you can't because it doesn't exist yet. And it will, I think, at some point. But right now, you want to buy a Tesla, you want to buy a Model 3 with the extended battery, sorry, boys, pony up your 50 grand, go to the store and buy it, and, take a look at that lithium-ion battery in there.
So first and foremost, the first step is this. Number one, it's not an us versus them mentality.
No, it shouldn't.
Everything these days, it's not an us versus them. It's, look, I get it. We're in it together. That being said, we're providing an energy service, a low cost energy service that this world can function on. Because we're not there yet. It's not 2022 where it's like, oh yeah, let's just fly around and water turbine.
Yeah, we don't have the We don't have the Hyperloop ready yet, from Musk and stuff. We're not quite there. I mean,
not there yet.
And hey, maybe we will be one day, and maybe in some time, hydrocarbons won't be as necessary, or maybe even necessary at all. Somewhere way down the line, I'm sure you and I will be long gone, and that's fine.
Where do you see a proactive step in us? Sitting here at the table. You know what? Screw the industry. Where do you see a proactive step with you and me, Stephen and JP, sitting here to be advocates for our industry?
Starting conversations, I think, and trying to create this dialogue with people that might have the same views that we do, even when that's frustrating or challenging. I think that's definitely something we can do. I think it's also about building that same mentality with our peers. I think I was mentioned earlier, I saw Ron Gusek, who's I want to say he was with Liberty, the president of Liberty or something. I could be saying that wrong, but he posted about a bunch of stuff that was more pressing issues that our planet is facing right now, with things like poverty and infant mortality and things like that. All these issues that they're facing that
It's factual.
Which is factual, but they said, we recognize that like climate change is real and blah, blah, blah. And he said that, but like, can we focus on actually making real change in the world and doing good for people instead of fighting about this topic of oil and gas being the devil?
How'd that go over?
My words, not his,
How'd that go over?
paraphrasing. It was universally acclaimed and well received. I mean, likes and people commenting on it. That's what I want to see. I want to see oil and gas leadership talk in that way, basically saying like, we recognize that the future is unclear. Nobody has they haven't got a magic eye that's going to predict what's going to happen.
Right.
We can't even predict what's going to happen in a month and, commodity prices and stuff. Who the hell knows what's going to happen in 20, 30, 40, 50 years? That's why you always see these companies talking about their 2050 plan will be net zero or whatever. It's like, dude, the CEO, you're going to be dead in 2050.
My 2050 plan is hopefully alive.
Yeah, right. 2050, I don't even know how I'll be in my mid 60s. It's like, I hope I'm still around and kicking, but I'm definitely not gonna be worried about that. So it's like, let's just have a conversation and support the industry like he did. That's what we need is leadership to step up. And you saw that like the Innovex CEO with the jackets and stuff. Loved that. I put up something.
It was very factual.
Yeah, and I put up something about that. It was factual without being
snooty or accusatory.
Yeah, it wasn't like you're stupid. It was just like, hey, look, maybe you don't realize that, and hey, guess what? That's okay. Let me help you. Let me help you understand. And does North Face understand or not understand? They probably do understand. It was just bad business. But in a general sense, how can our leaders stand up? And we really need the big companies do that too.
You know what? It's the big companies, but honestly, like change starts with us.
A single voice.
I think it's one of those things where it's us as a community need to get out there in our communities, whether it's volunteer and start talking to people, make friends. Like, oh yeah, I work for Gyrodata, I work for Capital Patrol Consultants. We're oil field and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They get to know you versus it's you're this dude in a suit and tie that wants to go to Africa and dump oil in the, punch holes in an oil barrel and seep out. So it's connecting with people. It's talking to people outside our little bubbles and just let them know that we're human too, and that we have families and we do good.
We're doing what we're doing to support them, right?
Absolutely.
And our way of life. And that's a good point about what can you and I do? I mean, it's storytelling. It's like what you do with the podcast. You try and have people on and reveal a new facet or something you didn't know, or some kind of nugget of information. And what I try to do with my writing, not my technical writing, but with my more journalistic style stuff, is like I want to capture stories that move people. And we've historically been very bad at that because because people like me, maybe we're really not given there's not a lot of me's. I mean, as far as like writing and oil and gas and stuff.
There's only one you.
But as far as like writing in the industry, I mean, we're around, but it's not like, ubiquitous or anything. We're not. Every company has a few of them. I mean, and, some of the stuff I've been doing for OGGN is like, that's what I'm trying to do is take these stories of amazing people and then pull out something that just like is like a holy shit moment, and that everybody deserves to hear. I mean, I was talking to Scott Gale and with Halliburton Labs, and he was talking about how he was a missionary for 2 years. And I'm just like, what? Dude, that's incredible. And he was like, I don't really talk about this much. And it's like, what? Like, this is the coolest thing ever.
The stories we have and the stories, and that's what our industry needs to focus on, is the stories. It doesn't need to be facts. It's like, that's 70% petroleum products.
Yeah. It's
so you need me.
It's just people and impact and what we do. And
that's the thing. Andrew Coronado was a musician. There's so many cool different aspects. You were a teacher. I mean, there's so many. Our industry is filled with so many individuals that aren't these obligated, which is great. So let's start talking to people. Let's start telling stories. Let's start telling stories on how we've helped people out. I mean, I guarantee you there's more people in the oil and gas industry that have helped people, their neighbors, their communities during this downturn when they couldn't find income or couldn't do those. Yes, it's like, well, I'm just doing what any other person would do. But those are the stories that we need to be telling.
Yeah.
To others, to ourselves, to others.
And those stories not only can be a positive kind of image reinforcement type thing, or even an image change, a vehicle to change the perception of who we are. but they can even be marketing tools sometimes.
Yeah.
So everybody wins, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the ones I was doing was a guy, Brady Neal, and he's the CEO of this company called CoreSource, and started off with some corrosion control and things like that. And then they got into emergency medical response on well sites. And they put a command center out there, and they got an EMT on site. They got triage. They got all this stuff. They got thermal imaging, so you can see all the temperature of the different frac pumps or whatever. They got fire suppression equipment and monitoring and sensors. This is pretty cool stuff. And he was telling me that, it's something I wrote about in the article. It'll come out at some point in the not too distant future. But he was telling me about, they were on the site one time for, I think it was for KLX Energy, and they were on the site, and this guy came into their command center, this old, grizzled old dude, and been with Halliburton for 40 years, now he's a consultant and stuff. Yeah, and they thought he was going to come in there and laugh him out of the place because change is bad. What the hell is this command center crap doing on my well site? I've never seen anything like this. And he went in there and he got real kind of somber and reflective, and he was like, man, I wish I'd had technology. I wish we'd had technology like this 20 years ago when I was on a site and my friend died in my arms. And they're just like, I'm sorry, what did you just say? And he's like, yeah, my friend on the well site, back in 99 or something. Yeah, he had a heart attack on the site. It was remote. Had to get him out by chopper. Didn't show up for 12 minutes. I'm giving the dude CPR and pressing his chest, and he died right in my arms. My buddy that I got the job. He was like, man, what I wouldn't give to have had that back then. And I'm just like,
dude, that's impactful.
I'm like, bro, I want this on a billboard. This is incredible. And why doesn't every well site have this now? And he's like, man, this is a really emotional story for me, and and I'm like, it's emotional for me too. This is incredible, and that's the kind of stuff we need to capture.
Yeah.
Not because like I was just describing it. Oh, it's emergency response on the well site. Thermal cameras. That's the flyer.
That's the cool part.
That's the marketing flyer.
But the story is somebody lost someone.
Yeah, and how many times has that been repeated and not told, right? Yeah. I mean, for every one of those that I heard, I mean, people have accidents on the wells, and it's not just a heart attack. I mean, it could be, there's a blowout and you get severely burned, and what if there's not somebody on the site and you die or whatever? I mean, this is dangerous. These people work in unbelievable conditions to get us the resources that allow us to live happy lives, and how many of them perish in the line of doing that? I don't know any statistics, but even one is bad. Yeah. And so, when he told me that story, I was like, this has to be in there. This has to be in the article, and I'm going to blast this thing to the moon and back. And that's what we need is stories like that, and find these amazing people.
It needs to be personal.
Yeah.
We don't do a good job doing that, but we're getting better.
We're trying.
We're getting better.
And tug at the heartstrings a little. I mean, because even people that aren't in oil and gas have hearts, and they feel things, and so that when you put that out there, if people that aren't in our community, because it's going to resonate with our community, they get it.
Oh yeah.
But even if some dude, some accountant, or a finance dude or whatever in some office somewhere reads that kind of story, they're like, wow, or maybe even a procurement or something person reads it and they're like, man, I should add well site safety. I should add emergency response to our AFE. Why isn't that on every well? Let's just bump the AFE up by 20K and put a freaking command center on there so nobody dies anymore. And I mean, I made that money up, but basically the idea of how do we change?
The personal stories is not just going to get to, our community, but that's the stuff that gets to, someone sitting in Montana, Connecticut, or whatever that will understand our industry and the people. And it's not our industry, we're people. You know what I mean? And that's what people are easy to do when they do this us versus them mentality. Oil and gas, fossil fuels versus, we're still people. You know what I mean? And we have families. We love our people. This are the best people out there, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So we need to do a better job at telling stories and connecting with people, whether they agree with us or not.
Yeah. It's just one step at a time. I mean, that's what we can do, is just keep talking. Keep trying, keep talking, have the conversations.
Steven, what else you got for me today, buddy? What am I not covering besides cheesy? By the way, Steven walked in. First time I ever met him was about 2 hours ago. I think he immediately became one of my best friends out there because the guy and I have a lot of similar interests, whether it's rock and roll, Black Sabbath, Metallica. We talked about Slayer earlier, bourbon. And
Yeah.
cheesy 80s, 90s horror flicks, which
Oh,
I dig,
yeah.
man. The slashers, and you actually watch Poultrygeist.
Poltergeist
and,
is a true
what was
classic.
it, Jesus
yeah.
Christ Vampire Slayer?
Jesus Christ Vampire Slayer.
So my wife and I, we love watching cheesy horror movies. Like, that's how my wife watches. There's that meme. It's like whenever your girl watches just horror films, red flag. I get it. Like, it's awesome. It's awesome. But yeah. So what's in line for you this weekend?
Man, I'm gonna watch a cheesy horror movie tonight, probably.
Anything in line?
And I don't know. We pick it. It's always picked instantaneously. It's like whatever mood strikes.
What if you have two really cheesy, shitty horror movies? Which one do you go with? Is it more gore? Or is it the name of it?
We'll usually watch the preview and then decide. I mean, if it's like totally ridiculous, we might just pick that one.
Yeah.
And sometimes it'll be like maybe a couple really dumb ones or ridiculous ones. And then we'll watch a more serious, like last weekend we watched the Criterion remaster, The Hills Have Eyes.
Oh my god,
So
original.
Beautiful. Not the remake, just the remaster.
Yeah.
So it's nice, it's beautiful, I mean, and it was incredible, and I actually enjoyed it. And I'd never, I
Wasn't
hadn't
one
seen
of
it
Wes Anderson's first movies, The Last House on the Left? I think it was.
I think so.
Have you seen The Last House on the Left?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Do
Yeah.
you remember that one scene?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyway,
Yeah.
do you have
But
anything else that you want to plug or bring up or discuss or anything like that? We got time.
I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm happy to be here. It's a Friday afternoon. It's a beautiful day out. I got to sip on a decent whiskey for a little while.
You brought a pretty legit bourbon in. What'd you bring in today?
Yeah, I brought us a Booker's. Booker's is kind of the high end or flagship from Jim Beam and Noe Booker. So it's a true bourbon. And
What's your go-to house bourbon?
Depends. I mean, I'm really more of a Scotch guy actually.
Really?
But I thought everybody brings bourbon. I better bring bourbon.
Bring whatever you want, but no one has to bring anything to the show.
But I
it's just
love
something.
bourbon. I mean, if I'm just getting one that I know well, it
Yeah.
might be like a Basil Hayden's or
That's a
something
good
like
one.
that. If they have Bookers, I'll get a Bookers.
Well, for the record, no one has to bring it to the podcast.
No,
People just do.
But
It's
we want
awesome.
to, I mean,
I love it.
And it was fun finding it because this is kind of a hard to find, and it's not like outrageously expensive or anything, but it's just kind of a what do they call it, allocated.
I've noticed. I've noticed that finding the hunt of bourbon is almost as fun as actually drinking it.
I mean,
Well, disagree, but you know what I mean.
I mean, I can just go to Specs and just look at them all, and I just wish I had like $5,000 with me because it's like all these. I want to try it all and just all these different flavors and stuff.
Only if it was 2015, the old field. We
Yeah,
could
right.
have done that.
Yeah, I
now we're
know.
in 2020.
Funny when I got hired at NOV and it was right before that really bad downturn, kind of end of 2014, early
Yeah.
2015,
Yep.
and our VP who was overseeing some of the automation stuff. I remember the first time I met him, it was me and him and Melissa, and and he said, "Man, they really snuck you in here before the funding ran out." I was like, "Thanks." I was like,
Thanks, bro.
Thanks, Tony. But hey, I was been there like 2 months, so it's okay. You got it. That's the thing I found with marketing or communications or whatever is that
Marketing, I like that.
it takes a little extra. You got to kind of, that goes back to what I was saying about I don't want to be just I don't want to just you to send me a draft of an article and then me make sure that the punctuation's in the right place. This is stupid, right? A monkey can do this. Like
Yeah.
I want you to send me a run report.
Grammar check can do that.
Yeah, put it in Grammarly.
Yeah.
Sign up for a yearly subscription for Grammarly Premium for $100 a month or whatever. Put 10 users on it. But my thing was like, I want to be able to write about it. I want you to send me a PowerPoint and a run report and some bit information and a bunch of tables and graphs and charts, and then I'm going to pull all that into a narrative story about what happens. Like that's what I want to do, and I want to get it too. And I mean, it's funny because I remember a guy I worked with. We were writing. It was either an SP. I don't remember which one, but it was either an SP or an AADE paper, and it was on like some downhole drilling stuff with agitators
Right.
and vibration and torque and all that.
I read
And
I read it.
he I don't know if I've read it in its entirety, but he, and I think it was after it was done, or maybe in the process of writing it, he sent the group of us this document, and I had to laugh because he included me on it, and he said, I thought you guys would really find this interesting. It was such a nice guy. He was our in-house engineer for Devon, and he said, I thought you'd find this interesting. It's this, it's this technical publication. in the Norwegian, journal of whatever, blah blah blah, and it was 92 pages on like friction factor modeling and torque and drag and stuff.
First off, I wish that's sexy.
Yeah, I mean,
First off, that is sexy.
Whew,
I wish you brought me a copy of that so I have a weekend lined out.
yeah, I know. I'll have to. That'll need a return. I'll have to come back and have another whiskey and bring that with me.
Yeah,
we can just do a whole episode.
We'll have a 5-hour episode about the torque turn friction.
But it was so funny because he thought that I could actually like read it and even understand it. And I actually skimmed some parts and stuff because I was just curious, and some things I actually could get, and I thought, this is good. Like, this is what I want. I can't get into formulas and mathematics and calculus and science and all that, and that's never going to be me no matter what I do. But if I go out and if I write something or I co-author something and someone comes to me and says, hey, I saw that paper on topic blah blah blah, like, tell me more about that. Like, what was that about? I don't want to have to say, I was just like the guy. I just like put some periods in there. I made sure the modifiers were hyphenated. Like, I want to say, oh yeah, so you want to talk about what was interesting in that paper? Let me like help you understand. And then if I can't get there, if it's something too deep in the weeds, then I say, hey, no problem. Let me connect you with person A.
They got the right guy for it, or girl.
And that's how I wanted it to be, was because marketing so often, or communications, it kind of has a bad rap. Some of it rightly, some of it not, but it has a bad rap for being just it's a money sink, because you think about advertising and videos and all this stuff. I mean, hell, back in the day, I mean, it's cheaper now, but back in the day when print magazines were a thing, you put one ad in a print magazine, it cost you $10,000. And I'm just in major companies like NOV or Schlumberger or whatever, they're doing campaigns for this stuff that is multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then you're like, wait a second, we're laying people off. So that's a struggle. I was in one of the investor meetings, and one of the presidents of business unit, he asked where I worked in, and I said I work in marketing, and he said, oh, so you work in overhead? And he laughed about it.
First off,
and that was funny. And I was like, damn, bro, the CEO's right there. But it's funny because Clay recognized the value of good writing and I met him. I'm on this committee or this board for SPE where we try and find content for young professionals to consume. For my group, we look for like stuff from industry leaders, like executives, entrepreneurs, people with great stories, and
do you ever connect to the college chapters?
Yeah,
with that, I mean, because I know we had
well, the SPE college stuff goes through that sometimes, and then even like at Jar Data, we've worked with like AD, U of H, and SP U of H and stuff. But when I started on that committee, I was in a different section, and I went to interview Clay, and I got him to agree to it, and it was so cool. I mean, you're in a company of 40,000 people, and you can email the CEO. Like, that was pretty exciting, especially for a young person in their career. Yeah. And I went and did this interview, and then we kind of finished it up, and he told me all this cool stuff. And the dude's smart. He was telling me about what's your advice for young professionals. He's like, yeah, it's like Martin Luther King's sweeping story or something about if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper. Yeah. That's what I tell people. Whatever you're going to do, just be the best. But it's like, dang, this guy's all right. He's all right. And then afterwards, closed the thing, turned off the Zoom, and he said, who are you? Something like that. But basically, how did this happen, right? How did you get in front of me? Because I'm a writer. I'm in the bottom rung of the hierarchy. That's fine. I was, I'm in early stage of my career. How am I on the 7th floor in a giant office building?
You're the best street sweeper.
And so I told him, well, I'm an English guy. Like, I'm not your average. I'm not your average Joe. Like, I'm a writer for a living, and like I have English degrees, so I'm not a technical dude. But like, I thought this was interesting, and I wanted to get your voice. And obviously, from a marketing perspective, we can use this and share this out and say our CEO did blah blah blah. So it creates all this additional content. And he was like, we have people like you, huh? Like, why don't I have you helping on like the investor relations type stuff? It's like,
yeah.
Because I don't know anything about it, What are you talking about again? And then that kind of started a very gradual, like I would go to some of these meetings and listen in and try and understand the finance and what was going on in the company and what we were doing, what was working, what was failing, key projects, profit and loss, blah, 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 all that stuff. But that was great because then I could take that back and use that to inform marketing. What works, what needs help, what's doing so badly that we shouldn't waste money helping it. We might divest it. So you'd have that perspective that a lot of people don't have, and that was another thing where I kind of would say yeah, I'm in marketing, but this is not pure marketing.
Yeah.
This is like it's like an amalgamation of all this stuff.
That's what I think is so cool about our industry. It's you have people from, I don't care if you're from, Pecos, Texas, or whether you're from Westport, Connecticut, where I'm from, or whether you're from Bel Air, English, market. There's everyone in our industry is so unique, and it's such a good blend of everyone. You know what I mean? It's such a great industry. And that's why I kind of want to talk about being an industry advocate with you, because you've done such a great job with that, I think. So, and the way you engage with people, and use your skills to help others. So, anyway,
I try.
We all try, brother. That's the only we can do right now. Anyway, anything else, buddy?
I'm good, man.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. And you can find Round the Rotary on Apple, Spotify, whatever you're listening to right now. You can find us on Instagram at round_the_Rotary_JP Warren. And everyone, this is Stephen Forrester, the Content Development Manager at Gyro Data, and / the contributing writer at Oil and Gas Global Network, OGGN. And man, I want to thank you for coming in, just kind of sharing your thoughts on everything from education to content to how we can have healthy dialogue with our industry and people that may not view the same things that we do on the same side. So thank you so much, and man, I wish you the best, dude.
Thanks, man. You too. I really appreciate the time.
I had a good time, buddy.
What a great way to spend a Friday afternoon. I'm on board, man. I'll come back every week.
I'll get home and watch some cheesy horror flicks with my wife right now, dude.
You might hear from me later. I'll tell you which one we picked tonight.
We'll be texting. All right, buddy. Well, man, I appreciate it. Wish you the best, and let's stay in touch. All right.
For sure.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.